Today I'm going to show you how to put the stove together and get it lit. I'm going to be doing this out here on the porch of my shed. First, when you get the stove, it'll look like this, about this size. First thing you'll want to do is take out your cotter pins, your wheels. Inside these pipe there's going to be some bolts, 4 of them, and some small washers. What I like to do is I like to take out a chunk of the pipe and put it on the stove just so I can maneuver it around. There'll be 4 pieces of pipe. There'll be 18-inch sections, and they're going to be belled on one end so they slide inside each other. So what I'll do then is I'll take a wheel and a bolt and a washer, put the washer on, run a cotter pin through the hole, through the axle bolt. I made the stove very simple to install and pull down, so it is mobile. I think today I'm going to light the stove inside the shed. I've got a chimney pipe installed on the roof because I hang out in the shed and I like to warm it up sometimes when it's cold. So anyway, screw on your bolts. They don't have to be tight. I just give them a few spins, make sure they're in probably 1/2 inch to 1 inch. It's just that easy. The stove's ready to be lit. You take your exhaust pipe and they slide inside of each other. I'm going to be doing it a little bit different today because I'm going to be putting it through the chimney in the shed. I'll show you how to do that and what size kindling you should start out with. Okay, what I did is I cut up some wood, some kindling to use to start the fire. I've got 4 different sizes. At first, you're going to need something very small just to get your fire going. Make sure your wood is dry. It does seem to work a little bit better and doesn't seem to smoke as much when you're getting your fire started. Once you get it going and your wood is dry, you shouldn't have any smoke at all when the stove is running correctly. This will be the next step. After you get your kindling up and running, it's pretty small. Works great. You can graduate up to the bigger stuff. Then even the bigger, chunkier wood works really well. I'm using it's a 2x4. It was just handy, so I just chopped it up with my hatchet. And then pieces about this size is about as big as it likes to take. You can put bigger ones in there. I've put in whole pieces of 2x4, and it does work, and it burns a little longer that way, but you do have more issues as far as keeping it more smoke free. But if you use pieces of wood, once you get the thing a good bed of coals going in it, anything like this works fine. I'm going to move this stuff and I'll set up the stove and I'll get it lit. Okay, as you can see on my floor, it's just a wood floor in my shed. I've laid down some of these paver bricks. They seem like they do the job really good. Any type of cement floor I think you'd be fine on too. I'm not condoning doing this, it's just that it works well for me. My shed again is tin, so it's made out of metal. It's not going to really hurt anything. As you can see up here, I've got a chimney pipe that I've installed on the top of my shed. So I have a place for the chimney to vent. I'll walk outside and see if I can show you this. There's the top of my shed right there. I just got one of those toppers on it. Keeps the rain out. Anyway, seems like it works good for me. I can run this out of a window too if I needed to. Anyway, I take the stove and put it together as you were there before, and I've moved my wood, my kindling and my bigger wood off to the side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set the stove on my brick, and then I'm going to run my pipe up through my chimney. I don't know if you can see that. Anyway, I'll bring the stove over and put it on the brick, center it. I had to add one more piece of chimney pipe to make it long enough for me because I got a gap between this and this. So what I did is I put another piece of the pipe and I just slide it up in the chimney and drop it down on. And then we're ready to go. Let me readjust this. Sorry about the poor video quality, I'm just using an old camera. Hopefully this works good. Okay, the technique that I use is I take a piece of newspaper and I take some of my kindling and put it in the middle of it. And I kind of fold it up into a diaper. Put it in, not real far, and I kind of pack it down a little bit so it's got room to breathe on the top. And take the rest of my kindling and I just set it on top. No real rocket science to that. Take a match, just light the paper in the front. Try to get this positioned right so you can see. And I kind of wanted to create a windy condition, so I do have a fan that I'm thinking about putting on right now too, but I kind of want you to hear what this thing will sound like once it takes off. So I'm going to let it go on its own for a second, and then I'll turn on the fan and show you how well it works in the windy conditions. Let's see if I can take this camera off here. And as it lights this kindling on, you'll start to get a huffing sound. I'm going to throw a little bit more on top. Like I say, this was just a cut up 2x4 that I had just laying around. Worked good. It's a dry piece of wood. I got a bunch of this stuff just laying around, just scrap stuff. You can use pine cones, you know, anything that you really got, you can throw in it as long as it's dry. Doesn't take much to get the thing going. It draws like crazy up that exhaust pipe. I just leave the door open while I'm getting the flame up and going, and to get a good bed of coals. I don't know if you can hear that. You can see how it draws that flame towards the back of the stove. Now I do have a thermometer, one of the magnetized thermometers I'm going to put on the top, just so you can see how hot this thing's getting. Anyway, it goes up quite high. My exhaust pipe here comes up and in through that piece through the ceiling. I'm going to run outside and show you how clean this thing burns. You'll get a little bit of smoke initially when you fire it up, but once you do that, it's pretty much smoke free. I can't see any smoke at all coming out of that. Let me see if I can get this back on the tripod. Okay, I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn on a fan to get some air moving in here so you can see how well this thing works in the wind. If you start getting a little bit of smoke coming out the front, just push everything towards the back again. Feed it a little bit more wood. Hope you can hear me over that fan. But the way it works best is that once you get your fire going, you feed to the front. You never want to pack this thing totally full and tight with wood. You want to leave some breathing room on the top for it to work. So if you put some wood in the front, the fire will actually crawl to the front and light the wood that's in the front as it works its way forward. But I've never had like a lot of sparks or anything come out of the top. Occasionally I'll get one or two that die pretty much immediately once they come out of the top. And as far as having like a lot of snapping wood, if you get something that's a little bit wet or a little bit, it's got a lot of pitch to it or sap, it'll want to pop and you can get hot coals coming out of the front of it. And what I do in that circumstance is I'll take a small piece of either the kindling or maybe even a stick or a bolt, and it doesn't have to be very big. And what you can do is you can take the lid and you can shut it on that stick and leave a little bit of an air gap, and it will create enough air that you don't get any hot sparks out the front, and it gives it plenty of air. The holes that I've put in the front of this and where the mouth is does give it enough oxygen pull through the door that when it drops down and your fire goes out and you got a bed of coals in there, it'll sustain the coals for a long period of time with the door completely closed. But you need to watch your smokestack, and if you can't hear it kind of draw the air in the front, you may get some smoke. You might need to open the door for a little bit until the thing gets roaring good. And once it does that, pretty much it'll burn on its own, smoke free. But all of your wood burns differently. Hardwoods are going to burn differently than any soft pines and stuff like that. And so it's always going to be a little bit of a learning curve to get it going good. And sometimes you may need to draw your wood back towards the front. If you pack it in there too tight, sometimes it needs to be pulled back to the front because it may be blocking that chimney. So you have to listen to your stove and see, what works the best. We're getting a good bed of coals going right now with that small kindling that's doing its job inside. You can always hear the draw of the oxygen coming in through the door. I'll see if I can take this off. I know it's hard to see from there. It's hard to hear it too. You'll hear a little draw of air inside when that thing is, when it's running good. Like I say, you don't have to keep stoking it, but if you put wood in and you put it towards the door, the fire will actually crawl towards the door. And as it burns up in the back, you can push all that wood back with a longer stick or something. You can just push it further back. But anyway, very easy, super simple. I think I've got this perfected to be a very efficient burning stove. It doesn't take a lot of wood to get it going. It's easy to cook a meal on it. I'm going to shut this door and kind of show you what the temperature is on it. Got some horseshoes welded on it just so it's easy to carry. It's at 200 degrees right now. It'll only take a few minutes more and it'll be up. Generally it'll run 400 to 600 degrees, and that whole top will stay hot 600-700 degrees, and you can cook and boil water. You can see the fire inside through the door, so you know that when you're down to coals or if you're getting flashing like that, you know that you're still got good flame going inside. Like I say, you don't have to have a ton of wood. Sometimes less is more. I probably wouldn't go more than halfway up that box with wood at any time. You can experiment with it and see how much you want to put in there. I've also burned fire logs in there. The fire logs generally will run 4 to 5 hours, and I'll just get the fire log started in the front. I'll light the package that it comes in, and once it gets burning, I'll close the door. And sometimes if you're getting a little bit of smoke, you can put a little piece of kindling in the front to prop that door open, similar to what I've done here. It just gives you a little bit of an air gap. And now we're at 300 degrees. It doesn't take long. It's a good running unit. Like I say, in windy conditions, it's perfect. I got the fan over there going. Looks like it's ready to shake apart, but I hope you can hear it over this fan. But I'll turn it up on high. I don't know what kind of wind that simulates or anything, but once you get your fire up and roaring, it's not going to affect it. It does a really good job. As long as you can hear that sound, it's going to be doing well. Shut this off for a second. That's what you want to hear. That's what it is a wood burning stove, and then it has to create that draw. When it's running like that, it's hot. 400 degrees. I'm going to walk outside and show you that chimney pipe one more time. Clean is clean. No smoke at all. Like I say, when you first start it up, you may get a puff of smoke. But after that, it should be very clean burning. Very easy to set up. Very easy to operate. 500 degrees. I don't know if that's working or not, but it just shows you how quick that thing gets up there. And I've had it running 900 degrees on the top, which is plenty hot to cook anything. We've cooked potatoes and onions and soup and pancakes and anything you like on this stove. It's just been great for us. And if you get it up really hot, like see right now, we're almost 600 degrees. It's really hot. Say you're going to warm up some coffee or something, and you've perked, like I use these perk type coffee makers. And I do a lot of coffee on it too, and I set it on there, and say it gets out of control and it's perking too hot, I can take the coffee pot off. What I do is I set another horseshoe on the top of that, and then I can put my pot back on that horseshoe. which gives it a little bit of a air gap underneath, which is like a medium. You got a high and a medium and a low, you know, if you want to get a little bit bigger horseshoe to get it off there a little bit more, just to where it perks real slow. But yeah, this thing will sit and run and run and run and on a little bit of wood. So when the propane runs out, you can pretty much burn pine cones or a piece of fence or a chunk off a tree. It's an old dead tree and it's free. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the video and I hope you get one of these stoves. They're a lot of fun for camping, hunting, survival. I mean, if it's just a good peace of mind, you know what I mean, to have something that actually works. Anyway, I hope this was what you needed to sell you one of these, because I think everybody should own one. I'm out. 700 degrees. If that helps or not. Really hot standing over this thing. I was also going to tell you, you really don't need to clean out any ash or coals. The coals cook and it keeps that stove just as hot as the flame. Seems like you can keep a bed of coals in there going for an hour or two with just on coals. You can cook on the top. It works great. When you got fire like that, you can throw in more wood. I just keep pushing the coals to the back to keep, you know, the flame there towards the back and over the cooking area on top. But yeah, I mean, it gets really hot on top and it stays hot with the coals. And if you get down to the point where you're just dealing with coals, you just stir them around a little bit and it burns them up pretty much complete. You might have a little bit of ash like in the morning after you're done using it, whatever, but you can just dump it out. Or I got a hook that I made out of metal. I just leave it hooked here on the wall, and what it is just you could use a piece of rebar or anything and just put a hook on it, and you can just go in and scrape you can bring your coals, move them around if you need to, or just drag them out. I've got a pan that I used to use for cooking. This one right here, matter of fact. It's got a lid. What I can do there is I can just take the lid off, put it underneath of it, and say I needed to leave and it was hot, too hot to leave. You can take the coals and just drag them out into the pan and go dump it. You know, you can do that if you needed to get out early or leave, and you could take that outside and, you know, or get it wet, pour some water on it in the pan. And then the stove would cool off earlier and you could get out of there. But you don't have to, if you've got a bed of coals going just like that and no flame, you can just stir it around a couple of times, and in the morning you got a little bit of ash left in there is all. And it doesn't hurt to restart a fire on ash. It actually gives it a little bit of breathing room underneath. So if you're not worried about a little bit of ash inside the stove, you can just go ahead and relight on it. Anyway, I think that's the end of the video. If you have any questions, you could give me a call. I'll probably leave my phone number on the website. Thanks for your patience, and sorry about the video quality again. Now I'm going to take it apart so you can see how quick and easy the thing comes apart. It assembles the exact same way, just in reverse. The way I start with it is I'll take a couple sections of these pipe off and just lay them on the ground. I leave a couple sections of pipe on the stove just because it's easier to tip to get the wheels out. And I just turn it. by hand. I don't tighten them up ever. They never come undone, so I just leave them a little bit loose so they're easy to take out. And just lean the stove to the side with the exhaust pipe. Just counterclockwise unscrew the bolts, and you can take the rest of the pipe out. As you can see on the ends of the pipe, they're flared to go inside of each other. Makes it quick and easy, a good connection. And when rain comes down it, it'll actually flow on the outside on all the pipe, so it isn't going to go down inside the stove. When putting the pipe inside, I open the door, and what I'll do is I'll put the flared ends on the opposite ends. So I'll put one end in, this is the flared end, I'll slide it in the stove. The other flared end, I'll turn around and go to the back of the stove. Reason being is it gets a little bit tight if you put them in with the flared ends on the same side. And then inside the stove, this side's the flared side, so I'll put the flared end to the back. This one here, the non-flared side, is in the front, so I'll put the flared end to the front. Then on the wheels, I do recommend, having some kind of a all-purpose tool or a Leatherman. There's cotter pins. So I pull the cotter pins out, and the bolt and the washers come apart. And a lot of times you don't need the Leatherman tool, but if they happen to get a little bit tight on you, it's nice to have that or a pair of pliers to get the washer or the cotter pins out of their bolts. Put all the washers, the small washers, on one bolt, and then run a cotter pin through it just so they don't get lost. And what I'll do is I'll put the bolt with the washers in, and the rest of the bolts inside the exhaust pipe. I'll take the cotter pins and the big washers, I'll put them inside. Shut the lid. We're done, we're ready to pick the unit up and go home. This is what you do when it's raining out. Fried potatoes. Man, awesome. Bring your pipe up underneath, out the side. You can do that out a window or out of a hole in a tent, like a wall tent. I got it under an easy up. Keeps you dry and warm. Still cook your food. Not a problem. Doesn't get very hot. Could almost touch it. Smells so good. Says it's 900 degrees right there in the front. Oh, sure works good. Saved us this trip. Oh yeah, when you do the extra pieces of pipe, it's good to put these big bolts in the back. Come out on a piece of wood, stabilize it so it doesn't pop a wheelie. You can see that, no smoke. Very good. Cooking away. Good coffee, potatoes, sausage. Oh yeah. Then we got the dancing coffee pot. You don't know why it does it, but it likes it. Whoa, nice and warm. Still really nice and cool. That's close. No smoke.
You guys have the phone guard.
About 900 degrees. That's the packable stove, the one that breaks down into a smaller package. Set up. When I disassemble it, I'll put it back on, show you the size. It's probably 6 foot tall to the top of the pipe, with the stove flat on the ground. There's a couple horseshoes welded onto the unit so you can carry it. You can either loop some rope through it. I use like a motorcycle tie down from front to back so it's easy to pack. I do have some extra pipe to make it to where if you wanted to put it out of a shed window or out of a wall tent, got a piece of straight pipe, a curved piece, 2 pieces of straight pipe again, which is one of these cut in half, and these 2 pieces here, which is that piece right there, is actually that piece cut, and that piece right there is the corner, which is probably about right there on that piece of pipe. But the whole thing gives you pretty much what you need to come up and out through a small window in a garage or a wall tent or a shed, or just to get the smoke away from you. I do recommend using the 12-inch long 3/4 inch bolts out the back with a piece of wood to steady it up, so it won't pop a wheelie over. If you don't put the bolts in there, it will pop a wheelie unless you put weights on the front 2 wheels. Okay, I'm going to take this apart now and you'll be able to see pretty much what it looks like when it's compact down for shipping.